This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Now, prepare yourselves for a Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels Special Edition.
Hello, Scoundrel Nation. Welcome to this Scoundrel Special Edition. I am your host, Dennis Keithly, and with me are my friends and co-hosts Jay Krebs and Darth Taxus.
Well, hello, Scoundrel Nation. This is Jay here. Glad to be doing another episode and can't wait to get into this topic today.
Hey, how's it going? Pretty good. I found a paperclip.
Did you?
I did. I named it.
Did you run to go get it?
Why would Rhonda get it?
No, did you run to go get it?
Again, I'm confused.
All right.
It's okay, Dennis. Go ahead.
Well, it's a big night on the Assessor Collector. So, Scoundrels, if you're new to Starship Sabers and Scoundrels, then let me welcome you to our show and our special brand of Star Wars discussion and fun. You've joined us for a Scoundrels Special Edition. These are our in-between episodes that we think of as the Blu-ray extras to our main shows that cover the news and contain other discussion. So tonight, I've got an interview with Mike Rahlmann from the Be Our Guest podcast and from the Magic for Less travel agency. Mike is a podcaster on all things Disney or the Disney parks mainly. And like I said, he's a travel agent for Disney, and he's a avid runner and has run a lot of these Disney races. And as I've been talking about for months, I'm getting ready to go down to Orlando for the Star Wars Arrival Run weekend. And so I couldn't think of anyone better than to have Mike come on and give me kind of a preview of what I was in store for the races. But before we get to that, Jay, I know you had signed up for the Star Wars Virtual Half Marathon. How's that been going for you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm actually done with my virtual half, so I've logged all of my miles, mostly on the treadmill because, of course, it's been a little chilly, but it's finally kind of warming up here. So I did send in my finishing time, and I printed off my certificate. So, yay! I know that's probably going to be a while before they send out the medals like last year, but super excited to get that, and super excited to hear this interview, too. This is really cool.
Yeah, I get to pick up my medal when I get down to Orlando as part of my welcome packet. So I'm looking forward to I'm looking forward to picking that up and getting on with these races. But Taxus, you done any running lately?
Taxus,
I'm sorry.
Are you there?
I was trying to frame the context of your question in a way that I understood in this reality.
I thought maybe you ran away from us.
Oh, okay. No, it was no running.
All right. Well, with no further ado then, let's head to my interview with Mike. Well, it is now my pleasure to welcome Mike Rahlmann from the Be Our Guest podcast and the Mouse for Less travel to Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels. Mike, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, Dennis. How you doing?
I am doing really well. Well, thanks for joining me for this. As I've been telling my listeners now for months, I've been getting ready for the Star Wars Arrival Run weekend next month, and I've never done one of these, so this is brand new to me. I've only been really running for about a year, so I thought it would be fun to have someone on who is A, a Star Wars fan, B, a runner, 3, a Disney Parks podcaster, and someone who's also a Disney travel agent. I mean, who better could I get to help me out with this? So I turned to you. But before we kind of get into the races themselves, what's your history with Star Wars? When did you become a Star Wars fan?
So as I recall, everybody back, I'm in my mid 40s. I think probably kind of the target audience. Well, I guess, Star Wars is very multi-generational at this point, but the original trilogy, I think, is very popular with those of us that are in our 40s now. And I just remember that as a kid, cable television came out to our neighborhood, and it was such a big deal if you had cable. And we had what was called CenCom, which was like one of the earliest cable providers, and we got the movie channels. And I just remember that Star Wars came on the movie channel. I didn't get to see it at the movie theater, but I saw it on cable on, I think, Showtime or HBO, one of the movie channels, and it was just like something I'd never seen. And I just remember that, and it's still this way today, even in my 40s now, is that when it comes on, I'm transfixed. I'm going to see it all the way through, even if I catch it halfway through. If I'm, on Tatooine, when I walk in, I'm watching it all the way through the Death Star being blown up and the big award ceremony at the end. I'm locked into it. But every time I watch it, it kind of takes me back to being 9 or 10 and watching it back in my, in my mind's eye back in my house from when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah. So do you have a favorite amongst all the movies?
I was really, I'm a episode 4 fan, the original A New Hope. I love that one because it sets the tone for the whole story. But I will tell you that, and I know this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I do like episode 7 because it's come full circle now for me because I have a daughter who's in college. She graduates this, I can't believe it, in May. And then I have an 11-year-old daughter as well. And when the episodes 1, 2, and 3 came out, the prequels, I was taking Paige, my college-age daughter, to the movies at the midnight showings. The very first showings. We saw 1, 2, and 3. Pulled her out of school. She was tired of. I think they were on Thursday nights. She was tired on Friday. Who cares? It was an event that we did together. Then I got to do that with episode 7 with my youngest daughter, and I think she really got bit by the bug. She wanted to be Rey, and she had a heroine to look up to. So episode 7 has a great place in my heart now too because it really empowered the girls. I think, and I have 2 daughters.
Yeah, I do remember those days back when it was on HBO and recording it on VHS and watching it until I wore out that tape. Must have seen it dozens of times that way.
That was me. I can still picture the VHS tape and how I wrote with a marker Star Wars real big, and I tried to do the same font as the movie, and it was just in like a 9-year-old handwriting. I still see the videotape right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about these races then. I've been listening to you on your podcast, and there's a big running community around Be Our Guest that's been around for a while, and I recently joined it, within the past year, the Lizards. And it got me really interested in running and then eventually doing one of these races. And hey, as a Star Wars podcaster and a major Star Wars fan, what better run to do than Star Wars Rival Run Weekend? So what can you tell me? What's this is going to be like? What am I doing when I get up in the morning?
So for the first thing, it's very early in the morning. The Force needs to be with you to get you out of bed. I will say that. It's rough. But then once you get up and get moving, I really enjoy the Star Wars races. Really, I think more than in some of the other races for certain reasons. Now, I run a lot of the Run Disney events. They have them in the fall with the Food and Wine Festival down there at Epcot. They have the big race weekend over January where there's a full marathon, a half, a 5, and a 10K. Star Wars it's not as intense as some of the other weekends. It's more laid back. There's just the 5, the 10, and the half marathons. You don't have quite the crowds you have in January and some of the other race weekends. It's a great time to be in Central Florida. The weather's usually awesome that weekend. But I'll tell you what, I think what makes the Star Wars race weekends are the guests, the people, because more than any other theme, there's a Princess half marathon weekend, and there's, like I said, just marathon weekend and wine and dine. The thing people really get into is Star Wars. So at this race weekend, you're going to really find kind of a cross-section of runners and huge Star Wars fans. And one of the best things is the costumes. You're going to see some amazing costumes. You're going to see, you're going to be running next to a Darth Vader at some point. You may have a group of Jawas come up behind you. People dressed like X-Wing fighters. I mean, it's one year I even ran past a guy who was the Death Star. It was amazing because, the passion for Star Wars fans, as you guys know, it's off the chain. It's crazy. So when you're out at a Run Disney event, it's about the people you're with. You're with other Star Wars fans that are crazy enough to get up and run at 5 o'clock in the morning. And it really is a spectacle to see.
Wow. So, one of the other things I've noticed about this is the medals, and people have been going on about the medals, and they look incredible. How many of these have you collected over time?
I don't have the Millennium Falcon. That's my medal. I want so badly because we got to do the Kessel Run. And so the way that Run Disney, if you're not familiar with how Run Disney does their things, the arm of the Disney running, is that they will tempt you by saying, well, it's great if you run one race, you're going to get this really nice medal. But however, if you do what's called a challenge, which could be 2 races over a weekend or 3 races altogether, you'll get a bonus medal. And what they do for Star Wars, if you do this race and that race, you can do the Kessel Run. You get the Millennium Falcon, which is a sweet medal. And they have these bonus medals. I just have the a couple, I think 3 of the half marathon medals and the 10K medals. I haven't done the challenges because I usually sign up very late and sometimes they're full. But the medals are pretty sweet because it's that cross section of it's a run medal, but it's also a very sweet piece of Star Wars memorabilia that you earned. I like that you have to earn it too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So again, I think you pointed out these are 5K, 10Ks, and a half marathon over the weekend. Other than the distance, is there any big difference between the three races?
Yeah, I would say that as you get onto the longer events, so the 5K, a lot of folks will walk it, just get out there, and they really focus on getting pictures taken with characters along the race course. You'll see a lot of just casual having fun. It's not timed. There's no, you're not running on a chip. You're not going to get picked up by the sagging wagon. You're not going to get swept off the course for going too slow on the 5K. It's very casual. The 10K, on the second day, everybody kind of picks it up a little bit, because you are timed. You can get swept. You're going twice as far. People tend to run more. And then, of course, on the half marathon, you have, the more serious of the runners. People probably have trained to go 13 miles. They may have a goal in mind for a time, maybe not. But, people tend to either run the whole race or run walk. A lot of folks do that. I'm a big fan of the run walk run. And it's just, it feels more of like a race environment than the other two races. But I will say with the half marathon, one of the things that I like the best of any Run Disney event is that during the half marathon, the 501st are there on the course. And one of the things that happens during all these other Run Disney events that I run is that when you want to get a picture with, say, a Wreck-It Ralph or some character, a princess, Mickey Mouse on the course, the lines can be 50, 60, 70 people long. And you're doing a race. You don't want to get swept. You don't want to get picked up for going too slow. So you really don't want to wait in line. Where during the Star Wars half marathon, you will have, honestly, these folks from the 501st, and you may have a group of 70 or 80 Star Wars characters to get your picture with. So you can actually just run up to somebody that's just hanging out, maybe Luke Skywalker, and get your picture with him, or Obi-Wan Kenobi, or, some kind of a stormtrooper, and just take a selfie. They're awesome. That's what I love, because you don't have to wait in line, run right up to somebody. They help you out. You get a great picture. It's amazing. That's really the best part for me about the Star Wars half marathon, are the characters that are there that are not, Disney cast members. They're there on their own time, and they really make the race.
Yeah, that's what I'm really looking forward to. I've seen some pictures in the past, and I like the idea of trying to get those pictures knocked out during the 5K, because I recently ran a 10K, and I got a little more competitive than I thought I was going to, and just couldn't help myself. As I was finding that I was catching up to somebody, I'd kick it into another gear, and the next thing I know, I was running harder than ever.
you gotta pick them off one by one.
That's right. That's right. So, one of the things that Star Wars fans love is we're really big into our memorabilia and our collectibles. So I know there's an expo that you need to go pick your bib up from, usually the day before your first race, but what kind of things are there for fans?
There's all kinds of stuff at these expos. So yeah, you will go there. You'll pick up it's called your bib pickup. So you'll get your bibs, you'll get your shirts for the races, which are really nice. You get these tech type running shirts, which will have a Star Wars theme to it. Every year it's a little bit different. I have one from the inaugural race. It's the dark side, and it's got Darth Vader on it, and it's got some red lightsabers. It's really cool because it's a cross between, again, Disney and running and Star Wars. So I really love that. While you're there, though, they do have lots of vendors set up. Of course, there's tons of running suppliers with medal holders and sneakers and gels and sunglasses, anything you need for running. But what you notice over these themed weekends like Star Wars is that they will pull out, shirts that, that have, like, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but they'll have, crazy sayings on them that relate to, like, Star Wars and running, the Force is chasing you, or, do or do not, and it'll say like 13.1. So something like that, but it's fun. And you need to really, if this is your first race weekend, plan time to go through there and take your time to kind of browse, because you never know. You end up spending more than you need to, but it's a good chance to get some stuff you may not have an opportunity to otherwise.
Yeah, I can't wait. I've got a modest collection of running gear, but I'm looking to personalize it to my taste here with the expo, and I've set a significant portion of my travel budget towards that. So you have anything that stands out to you from one of these races? Is there a moment that you mentioned running past someone dressed up as a Death Star, but is there any other moments that stand out to you from any of these races?
I think what it is, it's kind of the camaraderie of all the runners getting together, because you can drop the Star Wars puns on probably 95% of the folks that are out there on the course, especially during the half marathon, because you're going to be out there for, a good 3 hours for most people as you're running the race. So you have time, and you're running across total strangers, but you'll see them in a costume. And, I'm not a shy person. Like, I'll run up to somebody. There was a guy last year when I was running, because I ran this one last April, and he was dressed like Princess Leia, and there's a dude that was like 6'5", hairy guy. And I just had to get my picture with him because I'm like, courage, like you are into the spirit. He had the buns and all. And it was just, he enjoyed that somebody took the time to ask for a picture. I loved that picture. It's just the fun of it all. You can throw, just the lines from the movies out and people appreciate it. And it's just, it's fun because it's a great distraction as you're running too, because it's a chance to see the other folks. And I don't know, are you planning to dress up? Are you going to have any kind of costume or anything fun that you're going to do on the course?
I'd given it some thought, but considering that I don't have a lot of history running races, especially as an adult, I decided that I'm going to just I've got a pretty decent collection of Star Wars t-shirts, so I'm going to grab some of my favorites and take those with me and get a few runs under my belt down at Disney before the next time maybe I'll get a costume for that. But right now I've not run in the humidity that I'm expecting in Florida, and so I'm concentrating on finishing this time around, I think.
That's a good call. Yeah, it's a good call because you can always do that in subsequent runs. And that's the one thing about Run Disney for probably 75 to 80% of the folks is that it's kind of a gateway. Like you go down there and you get a little taste of it. And a lot of folks like to go back and do the next race. So I have a feeling you'll be back maybe next year.
Oh, I'm hoping to. It's been fun looking forward to this one. So let me ask you a question about just the course here. I mean, I know obviously with 3 different distances that we're not going to, they're going to have to add some distance to all these, but where do we typically run in the parks for these?
So I'm trying to think. I haven't looked at the courses this year because I'm actually not running this one this year. I have a big vacation coming up in the summer. Yeah. My daughter's cheerleading down there in May. So we'll be down there May, June, and July. So I couldn't get the wife to sign off on April somehow this year. So, but last year when we ran, especially the half marathon, it was really nice because we started. I don't know if you've looked at the courses, but if the start is like it was last year and it was in the Magic Kingdom parking lot, it was wonderful. It was the best, easiest start ever, easy to get to. Then you ran out, I believe we ran out to Animal Kingdom and ran through Pandora at night, which was really neat. It was still dark and it was a new land. It's very immersive. And, kind of ran back to the towards Epcot. And as I recall, I'm trying to remember. So I've done so many races since January. Yeah. I've done all these other races. But it was a really good course. Like the first year it was a different course when I ran the Star Wars weekend. But this new one that we did last year, and I'm sure they're going to repeat it because it got rave reviews. It was an awesome course and people loved it. And I think you're going to have a great time.
Okay, well that's great. I know I've heard in the past that you end up running to the parks. Now, are these races usually done before the parks open, or do they bleed over into park hours?
It kind of depends how fast you are. If you're up in the front, usually you're done before you'll see any guests in the parks. Also, it depends where you start is really kind of the major factor because the way Disney does this, if you're not a runner, is they put you in corrals based on your projected finish time. So when you sign up for a race, if you're a really fast runner, you type in that, it'll take you usually an hour and 45 minutes to run a half marathon. So they'll put all those speedy folks up in what's called Corral A. Then, the next group will be Corral B and then C and D, and you'll go back. And, the newer runners and the folks that aren't as worried about their times will be towards the back. And what that means is in a race as big as a Disney race, you may have 12 to 20,000 runners. So while the gun goes off, say at 5:30 in the morning for a race, if you're in Corral, say L, you may not cross that start line until say 6:15, 6:10, wow. 6:15. So you're already 45 minutes behind the starting gun. And then you're, kind of taking your time, getting some pictures, having a good time because you're not going to win. Who cares who wins? You paid all this money. These races are expensive. Get your money's worth. Have a good time. And, so you may go through a park while there's guests coming in. You know what? That's the hidden. I love that because the guests see you and they're like, oh, check out these people running, and you kind of feel like you're part of the Disney show, and it's a really neat thing. So I say go slow and enjoy every minute because the races are expensive. Have fun.
Yeah. I didn't have a time to submit for proof when I signed up for the run, and so I ended up in the second to last corral this time around. And I said, yeah, that's fine. I'm not going to get swept. I'll run fast enough to prevent that from happening, but I'm just taking it all in at this point. I'll worry about I don't know. I don't feel like you typically go to Disney Run to necessarily get your personal record when you're there. It seems like if you do that, you're kind of missing out on the experience itself. So
yeah, I mean, I think that, that's for the series. If you're going there for a time, you're going there for a different reason than I run Disney. I run Disney for the experience, for the pictures, for the memories. And I think that's what 90% of the people do. And being in that back corral gives you the opportunity. You're going to see everything, and especially just because you're going to pass a lot of folks, most likely. You're going to see a lot of folks, and that gives you a great opportunity to just take it all in. I'm telling you, man, you're set up for a great race.
No, thanks. So you mentioned pictures, and I know you said a few times about running up to someone who's got a great costume, whether it's a stormtrooper or Luke Skywalker, or Darth Vader, whatever, and grabbing a selfie. But do they? Well, I guess you should back up for a second. In the parks, they always had the photo pass photographers that are all over the place. Do they have any photographers on the course?
Absolutely. They do have stations, about probably 1 or 2 every mile, that have, the physical backdrops. They'll have one of the things, I don't want to give too much away because you've probably seen it online. One of the great things for this one, there's 2, they have really cool prop scenes. One of them they pull out each year is the Emperor's Throne. So you can actually sit in the Emperor's Throne, but like I said, there's a line, and it depends how many people are ahead of you. And it goes very quickly because they have an attendant there, a PhotoPass person. So they will take a picture, scan your magic band. That's a great thing about magic bands and Run Disney races. It's right there on your wrist. It doesn't bug you. And then you'll have it on Memory Maker, but they'll also use your phone if you want to. So you can do both. So there are people there from Disney, cast members with PhotoPass that will take your pictures. There's also another one you really don't want to miss. It's from Empire Strikes Back, the Ice Cave on Hoth, where they take your picture, and then when you see it on Memory Maker, they flip it upside down, so it looks like you're hanging there like a with meat like you. So it's pretty sweet.
That is pretty sweet. I hadn't even thought of that. That's pretty cool.
Don't miss that one. I think it's usually around Animal Kingdom.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you a non-Disney related question. Of course, everyone that listens to this podcast is interested in Galaxy's Edge, and I know I've heard you talk about it quite a bit lately with the announcement of the opening dates in May and August for Disneyland and Hollywood Studios, respectively. So, we've heard everything about the opening in phases and the restaurants and stuff like that. But has that been keeping you busy, helping people get rooms for that?
It has, and it's, again, this is what I have been doing for the last 2 years full time, as I've worked in travel, and I work exclusively with the Disney destinations and a little bit with Universal, but 95% of my business is Walt Disney World, Disney Cruise Line, and the Disney destinations. And what I found was, we've been knowing for a good 2 years that Galaxy's Edge was coming. It's coming to Disneyland. It's coming to Disney's Hollywood Studios in Florida. And when the announcement came out a couple weeks back, we were kind of surprised by how early the projected opening was for both lands. August 29th for Walt Disney World really surprised us. We were projecting, just kind of in our little agent group, probably November-ish. We were thinking that it would open, but I'm kind of excited by how it's happening, that they're doing a phased opening. You're not going to have Rise of the Resistance, but you will have Smuggler's Run. You'll have the land to experience, no fast pass, which is kind of interesting as well, because I think it'll keep wait times true. And I think some people, not the folks listening to this podcast, I doubt, but I think some people may wait until the full land is open with Rise of the Resistance. So maybe you won't get 100% of the people going down in August and early September, but I know a lot of people will. I'm really excited to see how it unfolds. And one of the other things that surprised me were some people that had trips planned for September, mid to late September, early October. They were trying to squeeze it in before they thought Galaxy's Edge would open. They've moved their trips. They're scared to death of the crowds. So it wasn't just people booking new trips because, I want to go in September now. It was people moving up to July, or early August, because they don't want to be there, which kind of surprised me too.
Yeah. Well, I gotta tell you, as excited as I am for that land, I'm not excited about the prospect of those opening day crowds. So for me, it's definitely on the bucket list and to-do list at some point, but I think I'm going to give it a little chance to breathe for a while, simply because it's going to be there. It's not going anywhere for a long time.
There's so, and the thing is, there's so much new stuff. We got, unrelated to Star Wars, but you got the gondola system, which is going to get people around in these, the Skyliner, these sky buckets, and that's going to be an ingenious way to travel between Epcot and the studios and some of the hotels, and that's going to go hand in hand with Star Wars because it's right there delivering you to Disney's Hollywood Studios. But you're right. I was having this conversation with my wife actually on the way back from dinner tonight as we're getting ready to record, and I said, sometimes our podcast will get a media invite to go down and see these things ahead of time. That's the best deal of all because there's no crowds to take care of you. It's super nice. It's just a handful of people, and you get to be one of the first to experience the land, which I got to do with Toy Story and New Fantasyland. I don't know if it's going to happen for Galaxy's Edge, but if it doesn't, I was telling my wife, I was like, you know, if we don't get one, I think I'm still going to fly down just for that weekend it opens. You just suck it up and stand in line. She's like, you're crazy. Like, you want to stand in line for 5 hours? And the thing is, I just feel like, and I know a lot of your fans maybe feel this way, that I feel like I need to be there as a Star Wars and a Disney fan. Even if I just walk through the land and maybe leave Smuggler's Run one time, I can say I was there when. Because I think this is going to just be something that, you know, it's not just another land. It's not just another attraction. This is a whole turning point with Disney, I think.
Yeah, it's there's a definite temptation there. That's for certain. Because, you know, it's the just like you said, the bragging rights to say you were there on that opening day. I don't know. I'm excited to, even if I never got on one of the rides, just getting in and wandering around the line, trying some of the food, the different shopping opportunities that they have. It just sounds like it's spraying right from the silver screen into the park. And I can't wait to try that out. But all right, well, Mike, this has been fantastic. I thank you for coming on Starship Sabers and Scoundrels and giving me some tips about what to expect for the upcoming run. You mentioned that you're a travel agent, and of course you have your own podcast. So why don't you let all of our Scoundrels know where they can find you?
Love Scoundrels. So, no, I'd love it if you check out our podcast. We talk Disney, and we got a lot of Star Wars on there because we are being dominated with folks that write in with questions about, you know, what do you think about this? You know, projections on Galaxy's Edge. Is this going to happen this? And so we are giving our best advice that we can. We do 3 podcasts a week. Monday's always a trip report, which we will have a lot of those, you know, coming this fall. Firsthand accounts of what it is like to be at the studios during this crazy time. Wednesdays, we answer listener questions. Again, a lot of Star Wars questions on those. And Friday's a topical show. We'll just talk about something happening in the Disney universe. But you can check us out at beourguestpodcast.com. We're available everywhere: Apple Podcast, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Google Play. So give us a shot. We'd love to have you drop in, see what you think.
And if they wanted to talk to you about arranging a trip, where would they reach you there?
You can just get me over at the Magic for Less Travel. So just drop by and it shows all the specials right there. And, you know, if you fill out a quote form, just put Be Our Guest Mike or Mike Rahlmann. Spell it the best you can. They'll get it to me and I'll take great care of you.
Yep, and I can vouch for your services. So definitely recommend you there. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me. And Scoundrels, again, make sure you check out Mike on Be Our Guest. That's what I listen to when I'm running, and I highly recommend it.
All right. Well, that was my interview with Mike. I hope you all enjoyed that. I had a good time kind of getting his feedback on what the Star Wars run weekends were like, and just kind of his thoughts on what's going on with Galaxy's Edge as well. So that was
cool.
I was glad he could join us for that. But,
Galaxy's Edge sounds like it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, and it's always great to have an insider, you know, that's done these runs and that type of thing too. Because oh gosh, I envy you, Dennis. I really do, because I'm hoping someday to be able to get to do that. So this was a great interview to really hype me up for hopefully being able to do that someday.
So do you think that they'll ever do crutch weekends?
I'm not
for a friend.
Not gonna bet on that one because I think the liability would just be a little too high.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, that's gonna do it for the Scoundrel Special Edition. Before we go, what do you guys have going on that our Scoundrels can look forward to?
Well, of course, for me, you can find me right here on Starship Sabers and Scoundrels as usual. And every once in a while, I'm also over on our Discord page, you know, on the RetroZap server there. And you can always check out my blogs over at Coffee with Kenobi, the archived versions of those, and the Core Worlds Couture fashion review blogs as well.
And you can find me over on The Geek Supreme with Scott Murray, Jeff McGee, and Regina Davis. And it's a little fun game show thing, so go check it out.
And as for myself, you can find my comic reviews over on RetroZap.com. And each month I'm talking Star Wars comics with Jovial J. Shepard on Jedi Journals. My wife Beth and I host a Star Trek podcast currently devoted to Discovery, that is Warp Trails, which you can find exclusively on the RetroZap.com podcast feed. If you want to find us on social media, we are at SQPod on Twitter and Instagram, and on Facebook at facebook.com/SQPod. You can email us at sqpod@retrozap.com if you so desire. And you can follow Darth Taxus on Twitter at Darth Taxus. Jay is at Joyce Krebs, and I am at DJKVER2. Speaking of RetroZap, we are a proud part of the RetroZap.com podcast network. The network currently features more than a dozen shows covering everything from retro gaming, movies, collecting, and a ton of Star Wars. You can subscribe to the network feed and you'll get them all in one place on your device. We'd love a review wherever you listen to your podcast. And hey, tell your friends, especially the ones that like Star Wars, about our show. Help them subscribe if they don't know how. We really appreciate the word of mouth. That's going to do it for this Scoundrel Special Edition. We'll talk to you all soon with another episode of Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels. Until then, Scoundrel Nation, may the Force be with you.
Hey, I just had an idea what kind of podcast you guys should do together.
What's that?
You should do like a podcast about Star Wars, but while you're running.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What would you call it?
I don't know, Jay. It's still in development.